Oh, the weather outside is frightful, and those hero fans are spiteful. And since we have moves to know, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow.
Yeah, this sucks. Let's talk about a character that reminds us of summer.
So despite November being literally the last month on the tier list of months having to do with Splatoon. It's funny that we've done all of these ultimate newcomers and left out one of the first ones announced. I guess it's because it wasn't an argument whether we'd see them appear or not. But I think it signifies a huge shift from, oh yeah, this Smash Bros makes sense. Oh my goodness! It was March 8th, 2018. Other than it being a World Kidney Day to remember, we had a Nintendo Direct filled with refined tennis gameplay and Sans crashing the show, all ending with, what is this, a Splatoon 1 remaster? And Inkling's face basically described a new generation of Smash Brothers. Inkling was our first glimpse into Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and everything that it was, and now we're actually having legitimate conversations about if a Tetris piece will be playable in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. So let's dive into this character and its extremely shallow history to get a feel for what the Inkling is all about. I'll be honest, it's weird for me to do a Know Your Moves where the history of the character happened after I started the series. I think other than, this is the only series like that. Splatoon dropped May 2015 worldwide for the Wii U. Then it released a new on the Nintendo Switch and slapped a number 2 in the title. Though the Wii U's crumbling consumer base didn't assist to high sales, the game did incredibly well. When it launched, it was the most successful new IP on a home console since Wii Sports. But worldwide, it went up against and was number 2 to The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. The Witcher 3! In short, Nintendo actually did it. They made a team-based shooting game in the most Nintendo way possible. And that's the core Splatoon and this Know Your Moves on the Inkling. Inkling is now a part of the Smash family as the newest Nintendo character. And every detail of the Inkling in Smash only came to be because of the extremely thoughtful and calculated design of these characters and the game of Splatoon. The goal of Splatoon is different from other shooters. Instead of focusing on killing opponents to net points, players must cover the map with as much ink as possible before the time runs out, and then killing opponents is sort of a natural byproduct of playing in a turf war. It was a unique idea and they probably weren't sure how well it would be received, but lo and behold, Splatoon was a hit. And while not a game for everyone, it established a mighty big fan base. Couple that in with the sequel releasing near the Switch's launch, and the game reached even more audiences and stands as the 6th best-selling Am I reading that right? The 6th best-selling Switch title? It's stacking up next to Mario Kart, Ultimate, Zelda, Pokemon, and Mario Odyssey. And this is a baby of a series. But let's back it up. Why did they go with all of this? Why did they decide to do this over other ideas? Well, the style of the game's world and characters actually derived from a gameplay idea. The game was always meant about being a multiplayer shooter about covering the map with your ink. So Nogami, the head developer, had to ask, what kind of characters or people would be into sort of paint-based turf wars? And if you give it a few seconds of thought, naturally, skate and punk culture was the perfect fit. I'm no historian, but I have played a heck of a lot of Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4. Skateboard turf wars had groups wearing similar garb to represent their crew. They also had specific graffiti tags that they would use to mark public property to represent their crew. Once this idea came about, they just went for it and developed the world of Splatoon and the Inklings. Splatoon's world and Inkling design was so heavily inspired by urban street fashion, mixing in the punk graffiti aesthetics from skate culture to give these characters a new and interesting look compared to any other game. They created slang for its characters, a language, and even fashion. Not to mention the inspiration of 90s and 2000s hip-hop for the fashion and music of this game. And because this game was always envisioned to be multiplayer, the developers cared a lot about character expression, which is seen through the different clothing and weapons you can purpose throughout the game. I think the appeal of Inkling's design was a big part as to why many audience gravitated towards them. It's not new at this point, but Inklings are human-squid hybrid characters. One of the first memes I had to encounter as a YouTuber was,
You're a kid now, you're a squid now, you're a kid, you're a squid, you're a kid, you're a squid.
I need a Tylenol 7. But this was an idea born from the gameplay of tossing out ink and swimming through it. Beyond that, the Inkling as a race has so much pizzazz oozing from their models. The tentacle hairstyle, the color grading along their hair, and the black around their eyes. It is a really unique class of character, and I'd love to just see its mechanics purposed in other games, honestly. So while Splatoon initially doesn't feel like a Nintendo game at first, once you look into it a little more, it has the company's name written all over it. And with the Inkling's passion for fashion, they needed to be handled correctly, and also, they're one of Smash's first shooter characters. No! So how did they implement Splatoon and Inkling into Super Smash Bros. Ultimate? First and foremost, Inkling doesn't miss a step with the style of Splatoon. Right from the jump, we have 8 unique costumes for them, and the focus on individuality that was so important to Splatoon's multiplayer was handled perfectly. First, you have a male and female Inkling, which you got to choose at the beginning of Splatoon. Not to mention the colors chosen happen to be all of the ink colors that appear in Splatoon. And can you just believe me that all of the costumes are from the game? Please? It's not like they had any shortage of clothes either, from headphones, school uniforms, elbow pads, helmets. They really let you customize and managed to put together a collection of cute and cool color-coded costumes. The yellow Inkling specifically, however, resembles Agent 4 from Splatoon 1. And this one's a reference to Monica. And the style doesn't merely stop with clothing. From stage entrance, taunts, to victory animation, the Inklings are a motley crew of individuals. Each of their taunts relates to the signals you can send out by pressing the D-pad in a turf war, basically serving as light communication with your team. The victory animations similarly relate to the victory screens in Splatoon, with each of them being based on the weapon you're using. Additionally, the stage entrance comes from when you enter a stage as Agent 3 in Octo Valley. But how do we talk about the fashion communicated within their moveset? Inklings employ their flexible squid limbs in order to kick and thrash opponents. From a bicycle kick up tilt, a spinning corkscrew neutral air, a double rainbow up air, a heel kick pummel, and a break-dancing down tilt. They certainly have energy, but how do they really get moving? Well, similar to Splatoon, the Inkling moves their quickest when they're in their squid form. Of course, having the entire Smash stage covered with ink is a bit of an unrealistic expectation, so they merely drop ink along the ground as they go. The nice thing is, though, that the squid form was included in many other parts of the moveset, from the spot dodge, roll, and up special, where they super jump exactly as they did in Splatoon when you reconvene with your team. The only difference is really being that in Smash, when you land with this move it has a hitbox, where in Splatoon it really was just meeting back up with your squad. Actually, it also appears in Inkling's up throw, where you super jump right into the spleen of your opponent. And cleverly, the back throw is one of the few times the squid form actually uses its tentacles to throw opponents, which is the only occasion that the tentacles were used really for anything. It's hair. Finally, this leads right into the bulk of their moveset, the Inkling's Ink Charge. In Splatoon, you couldn't just shoot willy-nilly, you needed to charge your ink every now and then by diving back in for a short period of time, which is exactly what is required of you in Smash by holding shield and special. You see that ink meter depleted, you can't use any of your special moves, mostly. Another interesting detail about the Ink Charge is it actually does this little thing called a low profile. In fighting games, this refers to moves that shrink your hitbox, making you exceptionally tough to hit. And the same applies to Smash when you disappear into the floor. This was a tactic in Splatoon to otherwise hide or avoid your enemies within the ink, then getting the jump on them when they don't see you. Whether it was fully intentional or not is a nice callback. I guess it's been long enough without mentioning the most important part of their moveset, the ink mechanic. In Smash Bros., the Inkling can cover any character they shoot with ink, similar to how you splat your opponents in Splatoon. In Smash, however, the more ink that covers your opponent, the more effective your attacks on them are. If the Inkling attacks an opponent that's covered head to toe in ink, it severely increases the damage and, by extension, the knockback. It sort of becomes its own metagame beyond the traditional Smash combat, and it can make or break the gameplay with this character. So what moves are most effective at covering them with ink? Look no further than your neutral special, the Splatter Shot. Super Soaker in looks, but inky in feel. The Splatter Shot allows you to angle your shots upwards and downwards as it naturally did in Splatoon, which kinda hilariously reminds me of the motion controls arguments surrounding the game. We do see the Splatter Shot elsewhere though, such as in the neutral jab finisher. There's also your forward throw, a very reliable source of inky punishment. Next up, the Splat Roller. A frustrating weapon to go up against in-game that doesn't miss a beat with its Smash inclusion. Ugh. The Splat Roller in Smash Bros. Buries your opponents and functionally is meant to set up KOs. In Splatoon though, there's no setup. One slam jam and bam, you're done. But with how much of a flowchart Splat Roller forward smash is, it's definitely meant to represent how it worked in Splatoon. These are the two better known ink weapons, but there are so many more in the moveset. The Splat Bomb similarly allows you to angle your throw with a bomb that'll cover your opponents in ink. In Splatoon, it'd be used to cover more map area or one-hit KO opponents. But in Smash, it's used more to keep enemies off your turf with a scary bomb, while also dealing a lot of damage and ink if it hits. And similarly to Splatoon, it can detonate if you hit it with a projectile. Next up, the rest of the smashes. All functioning as they did in Splatoon. The ink brush was introduced in Splatoon 1 in an update. In Splatoon, holding down ZR will let you zip and zoom around to paint the stage. However, mashing ZR will barrage your opponents with slaps of ink. A nice slap in the face with a marking of ink that would make Jigglypuff jealous. The Slosher is a bucket subclass that fires in a straight line, but it functions more like a double-sided attack in Smash. And then the Blaster, cleverly turning this projectile-based ink weapon into a fancy up smash. And last, but not least, the Killer Whale, the final smash. It functions almost exactly as it appeared in Splatoon. Literally, you would go to one side of the map and fire it, launching and hitting anything that gets in its way across the entire map.
The Inklings are such a satisfying character to go into because I didn't need to spend 100 hours to tell you about them. The Inkling is so satisfying because it really transitions Splatoon's mechanics into Smash Bros, a fighting game, and that really cements them on the roster as their own unique class of characters, a character type we've never really seen before.
It's almost clear as day that they adapted the basic gameplay objective of Splatoon into Smash. There, winning meant firing as much ink as possible, beating opponents in positioning and map control in order to cover as much of it with your ink, all while managing your ink and not getting splatted yourself. Does this not describe how the Inkling plays? Many of the Inkling's moves are meant to make your opponent avoid their ink. Further, the more ink covering your opponent, the better your chances at securing KOs. Also, the utilization of Roller really reminds me of my early and only days of Splatoon. Conversely, in Splatoon, when your opponents are out of ink, that is the time to strike, and it is the same in Smash. Moreover, you can make an argument that the Inkling's mobility in Smash was a testament to how mobile you could be when you cover the map with your ink. Like the mechanics of the Inkling, it gets me thinking, what if they made a 2D platformer with these sorts of mechanics? It would be so cool. But nonetheless, it's clear that an area control character mixed with high mobility was the right archetype for them to display the energetic kids into extreme sports, but also the ink-firing wild gunners. Which leads into the more visual part of their Smash design and how I think it echoes the appeal of Splatoon altogether. I will say it again, the game was a huge gamble for Nintendo. They don't do that often. I'm sure they thought it through immensely, but like the last original IP from Nintendo before Splatoon was codenamed Steam. Well, at least it wasn't Fire Emblem related. God damn it! And here I was dreaming of a Steel Diver character. Anyways, the game stood out to the masses because of how well it makes its unique paint-based gameplay with our cultural association with graffiti, punk, and skate culture. Inkling is all about that style, and while they're not as expressive as Banjo and Kazooie, who the hell is, they are aligned really accurately to how they appeared in their original games. You know, not looking at them how I saw Mario and Melee like.
Why are you so tan?
And this game came out after Smash Bros. For Wii U came out, so it really wasn't ambiguous what these guys were going for. And I'm uncertain on this fact, but I've heard the model for Inkling in Smash Bros. Was adapted or taken from the Splatoon 2 model. And, well, just like there, they have feet inside those shoes. Someone spent their Saturday doing this. It gives me hope that we'll see Nintendo try out more game genres in their own unique Nintendo style. In a way, Inkling and Splatoon sort of resemble the beginning of Nintendo's more experimental era with the company and their IPs. Again, codename Steam. We really haven't got a lot of new Nintendo IPs in the last 10 years.
And seriously, Nintendo's been riding the Pokemon Mario Cash Miltank for years, so to see a new IP spank the sales charts and contest with some of these highly, popular franchises, it's really cool. It gives me hope for new characters to arise from new Nintendo IPs and really make Nintendo a new company in the next 10 years. Daemon X Machina is on the top of that list. Anyways, thank you everybody for watching. I have to say thank you, huge thank you to Phantom Z2 or Z2. I'm going to assume it's Z because most of the world pronounce it Z. I don't, but thank you. He actually helped with a lot of the Splatoon footage you saw in this video. As you know, I'm not a Splatoon head. You can tend to know when someone is because they have the avatar. It's either they have like a Marie avatar or they don't. But he helped a lot with the scripting and also the footage. So thank you a lot, man. It really helped us out. I have to also say thank you to the patrons for supporting the videos and the channel because that's really the only way we can do Know Your Moves because they take a while and they take a lot of work. So if it was just on me, it would be very hard. But luckily, I can hire an editor. Duke is fantastic, and we can really put them together so they can stand the test of time. So thank you, everybody. Anyone else who's watching, everyone who's commenting, everyone who likes, thank you. And I will see you on the flip side. Take care.